So the circulatory system is made of three types of blood vessels: the arteries, the veins, and capillaries. And central to that is the pump, which is the heart. And the heart pumps blood around the body in a double circulatory system. This means that blood is pumped, oxygenated blood is pumped to the body, to the organs and the cells, and then returns via veins to the heart as deoxygenated blood. That deoxygenated blood in the second circulation then goes to the lungs, where it picks up oxygen and returns to the heart to be pumped to the rest of the body. If we look at the structure of the heart, you'll find that the heart is split into two halves, and you have the left half and the right half. Now, many students say that's obviously the wrong way around. Well, what you've got to do is you've got to think about the heart being in your chest, and if it's in your chest, then the left side is going to be there and your right side is going to be there. Okay, so that's the first thing to say. The way that you know which side is which is that the left side tends to have a thicker ventricle wall, as you can see there. That thicker wall is actually heart muscle, and the reason it's thicker, if you think back to the circulatory system that I just showed you, the heart, that's the left side, has to pump blood around the body, whereas on the right side that ventricle is much thinner, because it only needs to pump blood to the lungs. In terms of learning about the heart structures, you will need to be able to label the heart, and you need to know these labels. Now, one key thing is many students, they look on revision sites or other places, and they see heart valves, and they'll see the names of the heart valves. Now, for GCSE Biology, you don't need to name the heart valves, but you do need to know all the others. For example, aorta, pulmonary vein, the vena cava, and the pulmonary artery. You also need to be able to know the circulation of the blood as well, in terms of direction of flow. So the heart itself is actually made of muscle. So as you know, with muscles contract and relax, and they need a source of energy. And so heart muscles, they need a lot of energy to be released to allow contraction at 70 times a minute, and every single minute and hour of your life, so that it contracts and relaxes. And the way that it gets its energy is because it has a really great blood supply, obviously because it's the heart, but it has these coronary arteries. Now, coronary arteries lie on the outside of the heart, okay, and they're actually linked to the aorta, and they take oxygenated blood, and the oxygenated blood can actually move down through the coronary arteries. You've got different types of coronary arteries, you just need to know that they are called coronary arteries, and they supply the heart muscle with oxygenated blood, so it contains a lot of oxygen and obviously contains glucose as well, and that allows the cells that contain lots of mitochondria to release energy in the process of respiration. Now, you might have heard of coronary heart disease, and this is when these coronary arteries become thinner, or they get fatty deposits that build up on the inside of those arteries and make them thin or even block them, and that's what can cause coronary heart disease. So let's have a look at some exam questions related to the heart and circulatory system. This first question is definitely going to be a foundation tier question, and they'll show you the human heart, and they'll ask you what the different blood vessels are. So looking at that, okay, so you've got the heart, A, B, C, D and E, and it says which blood vessels, A, B or C, takes, so A, B or C, takes the blood to the lungs. So what you've got to do is just think about, well, which way is it going? So this is the left, this is the right. And if we think about the left atrium, so oxygenated blood from the lungs comes into the atrium, and then it goes through the ventricles, and it goes up out of the aorta to the rest of the body. And then the blood circulates around your body, okay, and then it comes back through the vena cava into your right atrium, right ventricle, and it goes through the pulmonary artery into the lungs. Okay, so the answer in this case will be B. This next question is usually going to be found in a foundation tier paper, so where they want you to complete each sentence and they give you a choice of words. So the first sentence says a ventricle fills with blood by the contraction of, well, the ventricle will fill because the atrium will contract and push blood into the ventricles. So it's the atrium. An atrium, I should say. When a ventricle contracts, blood is forced into, well, it's forced into an artery, so either the aorta or the pulmonary artery. So that's an artery. And when a ventricle relaxes, the backflow of blood into it is prevented by the closing of, well, this is an old spec question. Obviously you don't need to know about the names of the valves, so actually you wouldn't need to know this, but it would be a semilunar valve. But again, in the new spec that wouldn't come up. It might expect you to say that a valve closes to stop the backflow of blood. So in your exam they will test your knowledge of the subject, so checking that you know how to describe things or you know how to label things, but particularly if you're doing higher tier you're going to have to do questions where they're going to give you information. They're going to give you information that is data based, so for example graphically in this case. So here's a graph, okay, and they'll give you some information to go from to use in your answer. So in this question they're saying that during exercise the heart beats faster and with greater force, and then it tells you that the heart rate is the number of times the heart beats each minute, and it tells you again the volume of blood that travels out of the heart. In other words, the amount of blood each time the heart beats is called the stroke volume. So they're telling you that about the heartbeat per minute, so beats per minute, which you probably will know about, and stroke volume, which you might not know about. And then it tells you about an investigation. So they have two people, person 1 and person 2, and it says they ran as fast as they could for 1 minute. So you can see in the graph, let's have a look at the graph. So you can see person 1 here and person 2, and it says as fast as they could for 1 minute. And then it says scientists measured the heart rate and stroke volumes of person 1, person 2 at rest during the exercise and after the exercise. So during rest, and then during the exercise and after the exercise. And that shows the results. So on the graph you can see at rest, get the right setting, at rest, exercise, okay, and then after exercise, which is this point here. Okay, so there's 3 points, and you can see that they're measuring the heart rate in beats per minute, and the time is on the x-axis. Okay, and you've got person 1 and person 2. This graph on the right is showing the stroke volume, so that's the amount of blood that's being pushed out of the heart at rest again, during exercise and after exercise. So 2 sets of data. So here's the question. Now the question is giving you lots of information again. It tells you about what cardiac output is. So cardiac output is the heart rate times the stroke volume. And it tells you person 1's cardiac output is 12,320 centimeters cubed per minute. So they're giving you that information. That shows you how to work it out, but if you can't work it out, how I'm going to show you now. Okay, and then it says you use information from the figure, so that's from the graphs I just showed you, to complete the following calculation of person two's cardiac output at the end of exercise. So we're looking at person two at the end of exercise, and we've got to find out the heart rate and we've got to find out the stroke volume. Once we've found that out, we can work out the cardiac output because we know how to work it out from that equation at the top. Okay, so we take the ruler and we find person two. So for the heart rate, if you read it across, okay, you'll find that the heart rate is 148 beats per minute. And then if we take the ruler again, if we take the ruler again, let's find the ruler. There you go. And for person two, for stroke volume, if we just place it there, you can see if you read it across, just there. Okay, so that is, looking at that, oh no, I'm in the wrong place. Whoop, do apologise. There you go. Even DrBiology makes mistakes. So there we go. So after exercise. So we're looking at after exercise at that point there. So we can read that off, and that is 38. So we've got our two figures there. So if we go back to the question, we can now work out the cardiac output. So the heart rate is 148, stroke volume is 138, so you just need to multiply those figures and you will find the figure 5624 centimeters cubed per minute. So just using the information they've given you, all that information is given, you can get 3 marks there, which is quite easy marks really, if you realise that you need to use the information they give you. So the next question moves things on because we know person 2 has a lower cardiac output because they've told us the cardiac output for person 1 and for person 2 it's lower. And then it says use the information from the graph to suggest the main reason for the lower cardiac output. Well, looking at heart rates, the heart rate is quite similar between person 1 and person 2. There's not a big difference between 160 beats per minute and 148. The big difference is in the stroke volume. So person 2 definitely has a lower stroke volume. So what that means is that basically less blood is being pumped out of the blood at each beat. Some questions will be your maths skills, okay? So in this case, this one is definitely doing that. So it tells you, again, gives you lots of information here. And it tells you the aorta transports blood from the heart to the body. And it tells you at rest, blood travels at a mean speed of 10 centimeters per second. Blood travels at a mean speed of 0.5 millimeters per second in the capillaries, and the speed of blood decreases at a rate of 0.4 centimeters per second squared as blood travels from the aorta to the capillaries, because it's got to slow down to get into the capillaries. And it says calculate, so you're going to need your calculator, the time it takes for blood to travel from the aorta to the capillaries. Assume, so an assumption, so that the speed decreases at a constant rate. Sounds like a physics exam to me, but here we go. So one thing I have noticed looking at this is that you've got different units. So here you've got centimeters per second and millimeters per second. So you're going to have to convert the millimeters into centimeters or vice versa. So in this case 0.5 millimeters per second actually equals 0.05 centimeters per second. So you need to just look at the units, because when you work out the change in speed, that's going to be important. So the first thing, the rate of decrease in speed, you need to look at the change in speed. So it changes in speed from 10 centimeters per second to 0.05 centimeters per second. So that's the change in speed. You divide it by the time. since you're looking at seconds, you actually got the time here. It's actually 0.4 seconds. So well, even though it says 0.4 centimeters per second squared, well, actually the time is going to be 0.4. Okay, and that will give you, and now it says give your answer to two significant figures. So in your calculator you would have got 24.875. Well, that's not two significant figures, so you're going to have to round it up to two significant figures. So in this case it will be 25. Okay, so if you put 24.875, you wouldn't get all the marks. Basically you get 3 marks, but it says to two significant figures you need to show it, and you get 4 marks. This next question is great. If you've done your revision, okay, you will be able to do this question quite easily. The reason I say that is it because it says describe. Now you've got to remember, describe is really just describing, in this case, the route taken by oxygenated blood from the lungs to the body cells. So they're going to be asking you to name some structures of the heart that the blood travels through. There's no need to give a reason why that is the case. You just need to literally write down the pathway of the blood. Looking at the answer, it's quite simple. So blood travels through the pulmonary vein first, then into the left atrium, through the valve into the left ventricle, and then it leaves the heart via the aorta. Okay, and that is the 4 marks. Okay, it does say allow blood to travel through the arterioles or reaches cells by capillaries, but I don't think you need that. It's about the heart. Okay, so pulmonary vein, left atrium, left ventricle, aorta. Notice you don't get any marks for mentioning the valves. Okay, so be aware of that, because they just want to know the pathway from the lungs to the body cells. And that's it. I hope you found that useful. My next video I'm going to look at when we have problems with the heart and circulation, and what kind of medical treatments you can take, the advantages and disadvantages of those, and also go through some exam questions. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please do subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you soon. Thanks.